there's dozens, if not hundreds of factors, right, that we all feel are important. Everybody's got their own ranking for which ones are the most important and all the different methods. But Google has come out and said these three things are important. And they've come out over time. There was an announcement where they said these are the top three things, right? But these are three publicly admitted things that Google has said are ranking factors for your website. Two of these three, your host can make a big impact on, which is why I'm starting here, okay? Welcome back to Local SEO Tactics, where we bring you tips and tricks to get found online. I'm your host, Jesse Dolan, here in this episode with Bob Brennan and Sue Ginsburg, looking at, hey Sue, sorry, kind of cut you off there, looking at some questions here to help everybody out in their SEO. Sue, what are we talking about in this episode here today?
Today's question is a question that we get asked when we are doing a website build, design build or redesign, and that is, how does your web host affect SEO? The quote of the day today is, the common question that gets asked in business is why? That's a good question, but an equally valid question is, why not? And that is a Jeff Bezos quote. No need to say more about him. I don't think there's a person out there that wonders who he is at this point in time. So the story I'll share to set this up is, recently we were speaking to a business about building a new website, and they asked us, what are the different elements and what are the different things I'm going to have to do and the costs associated with it in addition to the website design build. We got to be on the topic of web hosts and switching web hosts, or would they need to switch web hosts? And if so, what did that entail? Would there be cost? Why would they do it? Why not? Et cetera, if they were going to get their website redone. It sounds like a simple question. And as usual, as Jesse says, the answer is, it depends. In their case, they happen to be hosted on a custom platform that was owned by their former SEO resources company, which made it challenging in this case to collaborate, which isn't always the case, but it was this time. With other website redesign and updates, we can keep the same web host. We have kept the same web host, and it hasn't been a problem. Depending on the situation and who the web host is, we may or may not recommend that the web host be changed for a variety of reasons. What we do know is that not all web hosts are created equal for a lot of different reasons. What you see may or may not be what you get, and you can't always know that without making the decision to switch. So knowing that, let's ask the experts how different web hosts may affect your SEO and see if we can all learn a little, be a little smarter about choosing a web host that won't get in the way of doing SEO to attract more leads online. What do you two have to say about that?
Bob, I'll rattle off a few things here I have prepared first. Feel free to holler, interrupt. I know there's a few things here in our pre-discussion that are going to resonate with you. So I want to start off with everybody. There's three things Google has came out publicly and said are ranking factors. We in the SEO industry, there's dozens, if not hundreds of factors, right, that we all feel are important. Everybody's got their own ranking for which ones are the most important and all the different methods. But Google has come out and said these three things are important. And they've come out over time. There was an announcement where they said these are the top three things, right? But these are three publicly admitted things that Google has said are ranking factors for your website. Two of these three, your host can make a big impact on, which is why I'm starting here, okay? So speed. Google has said website speed. And as we think about it, the more mobile usage we do on websites, speed's a factor. You want, you do a Google search, you click on a result, boom, that thing needs to load quick. If it's not, you're back to Google and so on. So for Google, they want good results. So they want fast websites that are going to load, right? Your web host can play a huge role in the speed of that. And we'll circle back to that in a second. The second is security. Having a secure website, SSL, right? Secure socket layer protection. You can tell your website is secure. If you visit it, look up in the address bar of your browser, it should say HTTPS, or some browsers have a little green bar or a lock symbol, things like that. Most sites today are secure, but your website being secure and then the host itself being secure is something that can definitely impact your SEO. And again, Google has come out and said that is a ranking factor, a secure website. The third is mobile. Now, this doesn't really have anything to do with your host. That's how you design your website, but just to round out the three things Google has said are ranking factors, right? So two of those three can be greatly impacted by your host. So you shouldn't discount, from an SEO sense, you shouldn't discount where your website is hosted. A couple rules, I wouldn't say rules, bits of guidance for people in this. How do you know if you're choosing a good host, right? If they're going to be secure, if they're going to be fast. So number one, you can do some Google searching. I'm sure there's tons of lists for fastest web hosts, right? Or secure web hosts, whatever. We're not going to have this episode turn into what are the best web hosts, things like that, right? This is more about how does it impact your SEO. But in regards to the speed part of it, you can do some research. There are definitely some hosts out there that are known to be faster than others. But then if you put yourself into one of two categories here, are you using I like to call them the big, the big hosts out there, the GoDaddy, right? The names that we might be familiar with or the names that you're going to see if you do some research. Are you using a web host of that ilk, or are you using your neighbor's daughter's cousin's, server in their basement that they put together as a college project? Like if your website is hosted on some weird contraption like that, maybe it is super fast right now, but you're going to be at the mercy of a person or a small number of people managing that server, managing that computer, all the connections, everything else. I wouldn't put my trust into that scenario for hosting your website, right? My own websites or our clients' websites, anything like that, go with a company who specializes it, who has redundant facilities, who has multiple people on staff that can take care of these things. It's not as simple as it sounds, hosting a website. So you're going to want to go with a big, reputable company. Some industries have specialized host providers that are maybe tied to the content management system you're using. We prefer WordPress when we build websites. Some websites for certain industries are built in proprietary content management systems. Sometimes there's a proprietary host that's also along with that. That can be okay too. In those scenarios, if you're not in a weird somebody's basement server situation, but you're also not with a larger GoDaddy, and you're wondering, is my website and my host fast? Do some testing. We put out an episode a while back of Google Lighthouse, which is built into Chrome, where you can test the speed of your website. You can do some searches online for speed testing tools. There's a lot of ways you can test it. And for us, having a good website host is paramount for that reason. Speed is a huge ranking factor. And even if it's not a ranking factor, it can be a big conversion factor. If Bob and I are competitors and we're number 1 and 2 in Google, if I'm number 1, my website loads slow, somebody's going to click out, go to Bob's number 2, and Bob's going to win the business if his website loaded fast, right? So even though in that case I was ranking above him, if that's a factor in my experience too, that's going to, in the short term, lead to a dip in conversions. Bob's going to get the clients. And then if that happens enough, if Google sees people pogo sticking out of your site and into Bob's, then you are gonna drop your rankings. Circling back to the security part real quick, the website, let's just say if it's on WordPress, you own your website, you manage your website. The host is kind of where you're parking it, right? They're serving it up. There's 2 layers of security there. There's one where you're managing your website and the content on it, but then there is the actual hosting part. And yeah, you want to make sure you're with a reputable, secure host. People can hack into your website and compromise it, but then people can also compromise the actual host itself. One of the areas, if it's possible, you want to avoid is large shared servers. These can be okay. And It's not something that you should freak out about if you're on a shared server. A lot of times, if you're paying 15, 20, 25 bucks a month, you're probably on a shared server, which means there's a computer, somewhere, and multiple websites are hosted on that. You can have a dedicated server where you're the only website that's living on that server. And there's pros and cons to both, the largest factor being the cost, right? But something to be aware of if you're on a shared server, again, let's just take Bob and I as two different website examples. Maybe Bob is running something out of Eastern Europe, some kind of phishing scam or something else. No offense, Bob. One of us has to be the guy here on this one. If Bob is doing that and just kind of gets a bad reputation, let's say, right? And we're on the same IP address on our server. We're neighbors, right? We're in the same duplex, if you will. Kind of guilt by association. I can catch some flack, from all the bad stuff Bob's doing just by, quote, living next door, right? In addition to that, if let's flip scenarios, Bob and I have two websites on that same server. Neither one of us is doing anything malicious, though. But Bob's website gets hacked. And now his website, not by his own accord, but because somebody else is manipulating it, is now compromised. And it has malicious code injected into the website, i.e. the host now. And that host, that server is being used to push out phishing attacks or spam emails, things like that. That IP address can get blacklisted, right? Which is going to be bad for anybody else that is also on that website. I'm sorry, on that web host, on that shared server. How does that impact your SEO? Well, if Google sees you as an unsecure website, right, whether your actual content is or not, they're going to demote you. That is definitely one of the things that they do not want on the first page of Google is compromised or malicious websites, right? So you want to protect against that. And your host is going to be your number one spot on that. A couple other quick areas here when it comes to factors that matter on your host. Downtime. A lot of the good reputable hosts will have some kind of an uptime performance guarantee. It's usually 99% or 99.99%, which I forget how many hours or minutes are in a day. Even if they're at 99.99%, that you could still have periods of downtime throughout the year, right? In that kind of a guarantee. But very, very minimal. And the reason we want to avoid against downtime, outside of the obvious where a client maybe hits your website and it's down so they can't patronize you. That sucks, right? Doesn't necessarily impact your SEO. That's just a bad client experience. But where it does impact your SEO is, let's say Google hit your website and was trying to crawl it. They're usual crawls when they're trying to hit your website and find the pages and digest the information. If Google hits an error that your website isn't there or a particular page isn't accessible because your host is down, your website is down, well, that looks bad to Google, right? You might be able to get away with that once, but if they come back and they see that happening as a pattern or they catch multiple instances, again, now your page, maybe you get de-indexed because Google thinks that the website doesn't exist anymore. Or you get demoted in your rankings if you were number one because now you're a bad website, right? You're not accessible. And that's going to, I wouldn't say a penalty because there's Google penalties. I don't mean that, but you'll get penalized for that in a sense of downgraded rankings. Two more areas here. These ones are maybe a little bit hidden, what people might think of initially. But one of them is the bandwidth, the traffic. Most clients we work with are not like the CNN or the Amazon.coms of the world where traffic is a huge issue on your website. But depending on who you are out there, maybe you're launching something, maybe you got a big PR campaign coming, whatever it is, can your web host handle spikes in traffic that you may generate? Again, if they can't, what's going to happen is users are going to hit your website and it'll be down because there's too much traffic. It was overloaded. Bad for user experience. And then again, if Google happens to hit you and that's happening as well, your website is down to Google too, and that's not good. So how much capacity, how much traffic, bandwidth does your host have? The larger ones, again, like a GoDaddy type scenario, they're going to have features for auto scaling, where they can absorb those big hits, or just by how they're set up, they have that capacity. Your neighbor's sister's cousin or whatever example I gave there, if they're that one computer in the basement, that's all it is, right? And you're definitely limited there. So depending on what you have for a business and what your website does, that can definitely be a factor on the front side and long-term for SEO. And then the last but not least here, which gets a little bit, ambiguous again, that's not a direct SEO, but it helps in certain scenarios, is their tech support. And the where this comes into play is when you're having issues, which always sucks. And usually if you're having issues, let's just say it's something where your website, is down and you need some kind of help, because as we just talked in two different scenarios, it's bad for your clients and your customers when they hit your website from an experience, but then also you don't want Google to be hitting your website while it's down. So if something's happening, you want support. And again, just the more reliable companies are going to have better support, faster support, more knowledgeable support. And we found in our experience, even if you are dealing with a company who has accessible support, is the person knowledgeable, right? There's companies that can host a website, and there's other ones that can work through issues with you, right? Some companies provide hosting, but you need to be an expert in server management, right? Well, not everybody listening here is. Everybody might have a website, but that doesn't mean they're an expert in server management. So what is the level of the support for their speed, their promptness? What is the level of support from their technical expertise? And Bob, before we jumped on, you had a pretty good idea on how to test out the support, or kind of peek under the hood there. If you wouldn't mind sharing that with everybody, I thought that was pretty good.
SEOspringtraining.com is the website that you can go ahead and purchase your tickets on there. You can learn a little bit more of information of what we're doing. I am absolutely available. My contact information is on there. It's Elizabeth at SEOspringtraining.com. So you're free to email me and ask questions. I absolutely don't mind. It is April 13th is the VIP, but 14th through the 16th is the regular marketing conference. It's in Scottsdale, Arizona. We have reserved an Embassy Suites.
And it's not an event where this isn't like trade show, where it's just sponsors all over tables, people throwing stuff around, and everything's brought to you by this and trying to sell you a package. It's actual people practicing SEO, doing it, right, that are up to date with what's happening.
We bring quality value to people through our events. That's the whole purpose of it, is just because, when we started out, we didn't know what we didn't know. And if I can shorten the learning curve for other people, I'm absolutely happy to. Our speakers are coming from so many different areas. We've got people from social, we've got people from super technical, we've got people from sales, people from affiliates. It's any discipline within the SEO marketing realm.
No, it's real people doing stuff, sharing, helping, and not just a one-off deal, not just a pitch fest to sell a bunch of stuff. You're going to come to the event, learn some stuff, get back, and actually make a difference in your business.
We give a lot of real-world, practical, actionable things that as soon as you're behind the computer, you can actually utilize that information and make a difference for your clients or your business.
Yeah, just do a test call. Try to figure out a way to, get there. If you're dealing with a salesperson or customer service, just say, okay, what can I expect for, tech support? Is it immediate? What is the timeline? And if you ask your customer service person that question, they kind of pause, or they don't have the, answer. That's not the end of the deal, but then, okay, give me your tech support line. And then I don't know if there's sample questions you could throw out there, Jess, like, that you would ask a tech person, but it's just really about response, type of a thing. And it's kind of, we got a review on one of our service companies here in Minneapolis where they were saying they call the number, but they don't know which store they're going to get, which I understand. But the way the company set it up, they set it up in such a way that the calls roll to the next store if somebody at that store can't pick up, because their policy and their belief is you should be able to talk to a live person, okay, versus it going to voicemail. And maybe the culture is such that they'd prefer to go to voicemail, but the point is, what is your expectation of service? And from this company's, viewpoint, they wanted to, their customers to talk to a live person. Right. That's kind of my spirit too. But I mean, to your point, Jess, just call, find out, talk to their tech people, see how if they can answer the phone. Do they answer the phone? And whatever. You get the idea. And we are in different times right now. I realize that in terms of customer service and staff, and everybody's short staff. But you just try to get a feel for where they're at. So
I think
Sorry,
you're
Jesse,
asking.
one other thing.
Yeah.
You mentioned the two factors, accessibility and how knowledgeable they are. I don't know if this is politically correct, and maybe it's part of accessibility, but having the person who you're asking the question to be understand, knowing that they will understand your question and that they will be able to communicate it back to you in language that's understandable to you. I mean, both from tech talk to layman's and the language barrier of whatever language you're calling in and asking the question in, can that person answer you in your language that you understand?
I don't think there's any political correctness worries there, right? Like if you're a business owner, marketing manager, whatever, crap's going down your website. Like you're talking to tech support. There needs to be communications there, right? So I think that's a great thing to explore. And everybody's different. Bob, myself, Sue, like we would probably want to call tech support. Somebody else, maybe they want to chat, right? Whatever your method is that you're looking for, to this point, like test it out, jump on there, ask some questions, get the vibe. Was the communication good? Was it responsive? Did they seem intelligent, right? As far as examples, I think one thing that's applicable for everybody, and that's also kind of natural for a test scenario here, is talk to them about, I want to switch hosts. That's a pretty complicated thing. If we're working with somebody, if they're on a GoDaddy or something, if we want to switch them somewhere else, or if they want to migrate, that's not a very straightforward process. That's pretty technical. So that's a great one to ask. And then you, as a new client to that web host, it's kind of a natural question to ask, right? Like, what's the process involved here? What pitfalls do I have? I could go into some other scenarios, but I think that's safe for everybody. You're not lying or deceiving with some kind of fake scenario. You just, I want to switch over to you. What's it entail? What should I do? Do you got a timeline, an order of events? And that should give you a pretty good idea on who you're dealing with or their competency level as the front line of support, right? Because when stuff goes wrong, you don't want to mess around for 4 hours on hold, right? Or going through the traditional questions and answers of chat, the chat bot before you hit the human being and all that. So I think it's great advice to check it out before you start throwing money at something. Okay, so let me just look at my notes. Tech support, fast recovery, front side for initial setup. Yeah, I think we're hitting on all the main points here for broadly. Yeah, why does my web host impact SEO, or can it, and what are the areas? I don't know if Bob, if you have anything else to add, or Sue as well.
Yeah, I guess I'm going to throw back a quick question to you. Yeah. Some of our clients generate probably on the low end $40,000 a month in revenue, and a lot of them is north of $100,000 a month in revenue. So then there's a broad spectrum of people that listen to this podcast. What is is there any kind of rule of thumbs? Let's just talk about risk and how would you approach it, knowing, like, depending on, no offense to the shoe shine guy or gal, but they generate $5,000 a month. Do they really need sophisticated? Where does that? How do you approach that, or how would you look at it based on the sales volume?
So, first of all, we recommend SiteGround, right? We're not going to bash other hosts necessarily, but go to localseotactics.com, click on resources. We've got a link to SiteGround. We talk about them all the time. Our preferred host, they're great for all the things we're talking about: speed, security, tech support. I think they have some plans. I forget the name that they put on their plans. And this would be like for the managed WordPress, which is kind of a little bit more deluxe than regular old web hosting if you're using WordPress. But I think those land in the $20, $25, maybe $30 a month range, Bob. And those should be fine unless you're starting to hit these bandwidth, or size of your website issues. And that's a shared hosting solution right there too. I talked earlier about being aware if you're unshared and maybe where you should be hesitant. For most businesses, this is going to be okay. You can upgrade and spend more money if you want. And to your question, Bob, if you've got the means, if you're a larger company and you can afford to be on a dedicated server or something else, yeah, then go for it. Maybe you're jump to $100, $200, even $300 a month. But if your website matters and you can get that ROI, yeah, shoe shine person, it'd take a lot for your website to bring in and get ROI and $300 investment just for your hosting, right?
Right.
Not gonna be in the cards there, but I think as a default, for most businesses, if this is a regular old website, not e-commerce, not an app, not a lot of like functional integration, just kind of more your online brochure corporate website, most businesses that are out there can probably jump right into something like that from a cost perspective and then decide if you need to go up from there. I don't think that I wouldn't recommend to any business, if we're talking, let's just say round it up a little, $30 a month to your shoe shine shop. There's not a lot of savings. Maybe you can go down to $5, $10, $15 a month for some kind of cheaper host. Maybe you pay yearly. I don't know. But to save $20 a month on hosting my website is not an area like I'll buy used pencils from the dollar store or something instead to save $20 a month. This is not an area you want to skimp $20 a month.
Yeah. And I just wanted to kind of get, everybody to get a understanding that, if you can correlate, leads like we can with some of our clients that end up being $20,000 or $100,000 a month in sales, you might want to invest that $200 a month. I mean, I don't know how important that is to keep that stable. That's kind of what I was driving at. Because again, everybody's from different business volumes and everything that goes with it. So to really kind of put it in context, that's how I look at it as a business owner. Again, it's about risk management. We've got this good thing going. How do we protect it? How do we keep it stable? Mm-hmm. There's a lot on the line. So
I think you should be paying, call it $25. You should be paying somewhere around that or more per month for your web hosting. If you're not, if you're out there listening, kind of as Bob's picking at this, are you in the right size? Really is how I distill it down for your business.
Right.
You should be paying somewhere in that range, maybe more. And I guess I'd offer up, so we do this often, let everybody know, like, this is what we do, right? So if you want some professional, support, a second opinion, feel free to reach out to us. Let us know your question. I'm on this hosting company. I want to look somewhere else. Or you guys recommend SiteGround. Would it be a good fit? We're here for those kinds of questions. We're here to help. And if you need actual professional service, and assistance to help you get through this, we obviously do that too. So I think if we don't totally answer questions that are in people's minds, just reach out to us in this topic. So
I think something you do all the time. Another thing I just thought of is talked about you can have your website on a custom platform, hosted on a custom platform. I know that in one recent case, when a client we were rebuilding their website and they asked us about their web host. They were paying $250 a month, and what we recommended cost them $25. So custom platforms also, if you're looking at a custom platform, look into what you might be getting that's worth the extra $225 a month. Because I don't know if it's there all of the time. You can save a lot of money right there.
Sometimes there can be some add-ons that are worth it for a company. Maybe they were managing your email or some other stuff, right? But again, I don't want to kind of go negative and bash, but we've definitely encountered numerous scenarios where that hosting fee, if you're into that provider for other services, maybe SEO, maybe web design, maybe who knows what, something else outside of web hosting, the hosting fee can be something that some profits can get baked into. Because, I mean, come on, like how much do we all really know about what the heck this even means or what it entails? Right. Sounds important, right? Right. So yeah, definitely something that if you're a regular old business out there, you're paying more than 20, 30, 40, 50 bucks a month, might want to look at that bill, see what you're paying for. There might be some savings there.
And I also think another way to think of it is your best salesperson goes out with COVID or for whatever reason. What's it worth to you to get them back up and in their role on a monthly basis?
Don't sleep on the website.
That's right.
That's all I got. Either one of you have anything else you want to add to the topic today?
No, that's about it.
I think you hit some really, really good points. Yep. And I'm sure there are many people who didn't even know that you had to think about a web host. And it's just one more thing that is necessary in order for you to have a good website that's out there communicating what you want it to. And if you figure that in most cases, your website is your biggest, broadest communication vehicle to everybody who you want to reach, it's worth $25 or $30 a month to make sure that it's up and running 365 days a year, if possible. So, okay, if you remember one thing and one thing only, remember this. Yes, pay attention to who your web host is. You have options, look into it, and there's no need to overpay for it. There's options out there that you can check out, whether it's calling to see what their service people say or whatever else you want to do, or we'll help you look into that if you want us to. But do not ignore who your web host is. It's an important part of your website platform and getting your message out there. So again, quote of the day, the common question that gets asked in business is why? Jeff Bezos tells us that's a good question, but an equally valid question is why not?
Right on.
It's worth asking.
That one.
Yep.
All right. So if you're out there listening or watching, hopefully this helps you out. If you've stuck through this whole episode on web hosting, I applaud you. This is definitely, one of the more nerdy or technical ones, right, that we've talked about. But it is good stuff. And to Sue's point, it's something that maybe we take for granted. You don't really think about, which should be good, right? If you're on a good, solid host, this is how it should be feeling to you. Yep. But maybe this gives you pause to investigate and check it out. Hopefully that helps you out. And if you have any questions about this topic or something similar that you've been thinking about, I guarantee you other people are thinking about it and we'd like to answer it on the show. Go on out to localseotactics.com, scroll down to the bottom, click the link for submit a question. You can type it in on the form or call it in, leave the voicemail. We'll use the audio on the show. We'll send you some free swag for doing so. You'll get your question answered, and it'll help the overall community out. Love to hear from you. LocalSEOTactics.com. Sue, thanks for the great question, the context, everything as usual. Bob, likewise, the commentary, the feedback. I know everybody appreciates that as well, and I think this is a pretty good episode for everybody. Thanks for tuning in, everyone. We'll catch you in the next one.
Bye now.
Bye-bye.